Here we are, going live. Going live. All right, I'm just doing a sound and video check here, which I kind of have done a check, but sometimes just when you hit live, you just gotta go make sure. So, I'll go make sure that I can actually see myself. Going live. Oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. All right, I'm just doing a sound and video check. All right, so it sounds good. Got an empty workbench. You don't even know what it took to clean off this workbench, and I know it doesn't actually look empty, but it's empty compared to me. I'm gonna go ahead and get set up. As you probably saw in the thumbnail, I'm gonna be installing a PowMr inverter because, you know, apparently I'm stuck on PowMr. It's really just kind of my way of getting into SRNE products because that's what they do, is they rebadge SRNE. SRNE, if you're seeing this, maybe you should contact me and we should, you know, do some stuff directly instead of through one of your resellers. I don't know. I'm gonna go grab a pallet that happens to have a board on it that happens to be a great place to mount an inverter and a battery. You'll stay with me audio. Video, maybe not so much. Hang with me. Ooh, that's right, I got some of these panels over here. All right. I don't know if I've ever done a weekend stream. Here we are on a Saturday. Here we are. Figured why not. I have a couple hours before I need to close up and go home. Something really cool about this inverter, and I'm so glad that they updated it, because there was definitely some stuff on the old one that was annoying. It worked, and I sold quite a few of them, but it was annoying. For example, the 100 volt input limit for solar. You end up getting really close to having to run a combiner box. Is that far enough? And I just don't really like running combiner boxes. We'll just go over here so you can see half the mess on my board here. We'll leave it right there. So the new inverter, and as far as I know, this is a first for them, allows high voltage input for solar and is a 24 volt inverter. Those two were existent. That existed. What didn't exist was that it put out 120 volts AC. So that's slick that they finally have something that will put out 120 volts AC that connects to a 24 volt battery that accepts high voltage DC input from the solar panels. So that's what we've got here today. I finally have one here, and of course I bought it and had them ship it to me on the slow boat, and so other people have probably already gotten it and played with it, but here it is today, and I have it. Oh, and look, I already unboxed it. Anyway, oh, something else that I thought was really cool. By the way, if you're jumping into the stream, let me know how the audio and video are working. My last stream that I put up, and if anybody missed it, and you're like, oh, he made it private, don't worry, you didn't miss anything. I went back and tried to watch the recorded stream, and you couldn't hardly tell what I was saying because the audio kept like going in and out, and the video was so choppy, you definitely couldn't read my lips, so it was just completely useless. So I didn't like make it private because I was trying to cut you out of it. It was just because I was saving you the misery of going and looking at it. We'll do another one that's a battery build, don't worry. Anyway, I thought this was really cool. So something I always lose on these inverters is the little tiny screws that hold the plate that covers all the wires. And they included 4 extra screws, not just one, not just 2, but 4 extra screws in the bag for that, along with the crimp terminals for your battery wires. I thought that was really cool. It's like, does it really cost them anything extra? Does it cost like 5 cents? But we're so used to China, you know, cost cutting to the cent. And I really love that they included 4 extra screws. Now I'll probably lose those 4 extra screws as well, but I at least had a chance. I'm gonna pause. I'm not gonna pause the video, but I'm pausing my talking because I lost my little screen over here that had all the chat, and I want to see the chat. It was here last time. What's studio mode? Nope, that's not what I wanted. What if I take it down here? Nope. Doesn't do it either. What the heck? Okay, you know what? I can probably just bring it up inside of YouTube. Usually I can do it inside of OBS, but it's not showing up there. So, live chat. Audio's on the high side. I can fix that. Whoa. Hold on. I put everything up on my big screen, but apparently everything's not up on my big screen. Oh, they popped the chat out. That's so weird. I found it now that I went to my other screen. It was on my other screen. Found it. You sound good. Microphone's too close. So is it like clipping? Here, let me, I really do appreciate the input because it's hard for me to know. Shouldn't be hard for me to know. I should be able to figure it out. Wireless go. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this from 98 down to like 90. I don't know if it's gonna be too much. Okay, we'll see if that, Steven, let me know if that sounds a little bit better for audio. Anyway, I was over here rambling about this inverter that's upside down. So it's still, and I'll show you, I want to show you a comparison. I kind of want to see if this thing's any bigger or smaller than the old one too. So this is their 3000 watt, 120 volt output inverter. It does not have parallel capabilities, so you're stuck at 3000 watts. I mean, unless like you're in an RV and you want to run like 3000 watts to one side of the RV and 3000 the other. Like if you're in a 50 amp RV and it's got 2 separate circuits, like that could work. As long as you don't need the 240 volt output. But yeah, it's stuck at 3000. Let me grab though, first of all, wish this thing could be bigger. Where is my mouse? I almost can't see it. That doesn't help. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this other inverter here. Probably looks really weird that you can hear me and can't see me. This one looks a little bigger, but that might just be me. Nope, that's just me. So this appears to be the same exact case. They just put the hole, you can't quite see it. They just put the hole in a different place. So there's this one and this one. So this is their old style. I mean, it's an SRNE. I believe this is an SRNE as well. So this one accepted 100 volt input, has a 60 amp solar charge controller. This one accepts, is it 500 volt or 450? It is 450 volt input from the solar, and it's an 80 amp charge controller. So this is stuck at 1400 watts. This can do 2000 watts. In addition, this one had a max of 1600 watts for max array. So you can only overpanel by 200 watts, whereas this one has a max solar array of 4000 watts. So obviously you can overpanel it, whereas this one was like, maybe you shouldn't overpanel it. Because a lot of times you couldn't even pick solar panels that would be overpaneled by only 200 watts. So kind of weird in the first place. Anyway, so this is the one we're gonna use today. I bought 2 of these to play around with, and then somebody ended up needing one and I sold one. So I was like, I better do this video quick before I end up selling out of them and not have anything left. Not have anything left to play with. I gotta have something to play with. So I was going to put it over here, and I'm going to use this battery that I just set a bunch of things on. Why did I set a bunch of things over here? I knew I was going to use this later. So that I can lift this off without scraping things. I'd rather not scrape things. There we go. I'll have to figure out where to put this battery. So this is just a little 130 amp hour 24 volt battery, so that'll work great for our needs today. Switch is off. Let me grab a socket wrench for that guy. He's probably a 14 millimeter. Hey, look, I cleaned up, so I know where my tools are. Doo, doo, doo. Steven, does my audio sound better now? Would it help if I was a little less excited too? Too bad. I'm sorry. I apparently don't have a mute button close enough. Let's see if this thing, you can actually see way down here. That's awesome. It's kind of precarious. That's all right. Later I can run the ratchet strap around that battery too if I want to. All right, so I've got that there. If I put this guy up nice and high, I'm gonna need some battery cables to get down there. So I need some 2-gauge wire. Let's grab me some 2-gauge wire here. Gonna need some ring terminals. What size ring terminals am I gonna need? Hope I got my crimper here. I think I do. There it is. So this thing's going to be able to run like 150 amps. So maybe I should get this out of the way. 150 amps, so 2-gauge wire would be sufficient. I sound good. Yes! I did something. I knew the other day when I did the live stream, I was like, I'm going to mess something up, and I did. But that just means that today I know what I messed up and I can have a better chance of getting it right. Actually, this guy's already got a fuse on it, doesn't it? What fuse rating is this? It's a 200. That's perfect. I was going to put a switch and a fuse and wire those in, but the battery already has a switch and a fuse that's appropriate for this inverter. So how about that? One less thing for me to do. All right, look at that. My crimper's already set for 2-gauge. I just need see how long my wire needs to be. If I'm coming from, say, there to there. So how long is your wire? The length that it needs to be. Don't actually know how long it is. I just know that it's the length that it needs to be. I ordered some very expensive wire this last week because I've got these Mega Revo inverters that I'm selling now. And it's like, for 190 amps, I need some, I forget what it was. It was 2-aught or 4-aught. It's like, this is massive stuff. I just threw it at the trash can and missed both. Let's see, I think this is gonna be a little longer. Let's go right there. Apparently red's always a little bit longer because I have a lot less red 2-gauge on my spool than I do black 2-gauge. Next time I buy, I need to buy just red instead of red and black. All right, so these guys into the inverter itself, just use the included terminals, which are 1/4 inch, I believe. What do these say on them? Actually, I think that specifies what the ring terminal size is. Anyway, It's for 2-gauge wire, so that's what really matters. But that's what I would use on here is 1/4 inch if I didn't already have these. Beautiful. Aren't I graceful? All right, so on the far end, I'm gonna need, is this a 3/8? I think this one's a 3/8. And then that one is a 5/16. Because no, we can't just keep it all the same. That would be way too boring. Fuse has gotta be 5/16. Stud's gotta be 3/8. All right, so my stud is going to be my black wire, commonly referred to as the negative wire. Wish you guys could say something. I mean, you could always chat, because me talking is probably fairly boring. Maybe I should find some music to be able to play in the background. And that get all goobered up already. All right. I think that's all the crimping I gotta do. This just seems so easy. Of course, I guess I'm not building a battery. I'm just connecting an inverter. Just connecting an inverter. So, not nearly so intensive. Let's see here. Just checking, because it shows that there's 8 people in the stream, 9 people in the stream, but then when I look at the chat, it only shows me as a participant. And maybe that's just because some people just show up as hidden. I'm just curious. If you are actually here, would you mind sounding off in the chat? Because I'm curious if this is actually working and I am actually streaming. Or if I'm just talking to myself, which I do a lot anyway.
Thank you.
Looks like it's still there. Live chat. I can see everything on here. It's probably working. I don't really know. I don't really know. I need some heat shrink. I've got my heat gun over there. And here's my heat shrink. I did leave my heat shrink cutting scissors back at the layer where I build batteries. So I'll just have to use my knife to cut me off some sections. Definitely not consistent. That's all right. Oh, we do have people. Okay, good. So it's just showing weird. That's okay. It can show weird. It's just, you can just be like me. I'm weird. So for anybody that's just jumping in, I was talking and rambling about how PowMr has this newer inverter charger that's the 3000 watt at 24 volt battery. And it's got a few very key features that are better than the older version that they had. So the old version, I feel like it worked pretty well. I do have one person who bought one and he used it pretty consistently for a year or two and then it just up and died. I think it shorted out the terminals, the battery terminals internally. So I don't know if the MOSFET went kablooey or what. So I mean, not perfect, but they've been pretty reliable from what I've seen. One of the things that I didn't like about it was the fact that it could only accept 100 volts from solar panels. So like if you had a couple of 72 cell solar panels, like some 400s or some, like this 400 watt Jinkos that I've had in the past that are like 48, 49 volts a piece, you really couldn't run those in series. You had to run them all in parallel. So then you're running 3 panels in parallel and you've got like 30 amps on the wire. At 30 amps, you can't really run MC4. You really got to go through a combiner box. You just end up with like extra costs and complexities that just don't make any sense. So with this newer version, it's also only a 60 amp charger. So when you got a 3000 watt inverter, but you only charge it 60 amps into the battery, that's only 1400 watts. And it's just kind of, it's off kilter. And I mean, I could have just gone 48 volt because that fixes a lot of things. Most of the 48 volt inverter chargers have 80 amp charge controllers, so you can do almost 4000 watts of charging, and that works really well. But sometimes 24 volts makes sense for whatever reason. So the newer version accepts 450 volts from the solar panels instead of 100 volts from the solar panels. So much more flexible on what you can do there. You can just run the panels in series, and typically you're just going to have one string of panels because getting enough panels in one string is not hard. I mean, unless they're like oddball panels that are very low current, high voltage, like the Cylindra panels or some SunPower 435s or something like that. You might run into some issues where you do have to run some in parallel, but typically on a normal panel, you would just run them all in series. So that's really cool. Just run them all in series and you're done. No more combiners and fuses and all this stuff. Now you do have a high voltage DC. I want to make sure that I've got a switch to turn off the input to the solar, because if you've got 300 volts DC sitting there, that's a little shocking. See what I did there? There was something else. There's something else. Now it's still not parallelable, which would be cool if they had done paralleling so that you could do split phase and extra inverters. Oh, the other thing was the fact that you can over panel this one. So this one, it could do 1400 watts of charging, you can do 1600 watts of solar. So very, very, very small room in order to add additional panels for when it's cloudy or whatnot. This one is an 80 amp charger, so it'll charge at 2000 watts. You can do 4000 watts of solar. So way more. It's obviously able to over panel as opposed to the other older one, which was like, you know, if you really wanted to, you could try and get over it a little bit. So I thought that was really cool. And so I bought it. Well, I bought a couple of them. Oh, you know these little screws that I'm unscrewing? I don't know if you've ever lost them. These just always get lost. They included not one, not two, but 4 extra screws in the bag because they know me. I feel known. I feel seen. So now I have no excuse. Doesn't mean I won't lose them, but I have no excuse now. And hey, Steven, thanks for being on first and hanging out here. Brente Brown, hi, and Ray Gibson. Appreciate you guys being here, having a little bit of fun with me. So I've got my wires here. Oh, I need my bolts. Ooh, almost lost one of the screws that I said I was gonna lose eventually. Oh, there they all go. Where's my other screwdriver? I'm gonna end up doing this with the wrong screwdriver, but oh well. Oh well. It is a little cloudy today, so we're going to try out the over paneling. I suppose not by much. I've got my trailer array set up with 2,370 watts. Yes, it's an odd number because they're 395 watt solar panels. 6 of them in series. Oh, you know what? I forgot to, y'all are gonna have to bear with me when we get to that point because I forgot to pull the optimizers off of them. Earlier I was testing the process for setting up a Huai inverter, and that requires an optimizer on every panel, and it requires 6 optimizers to be able to work at all. So thankfully my panel has, or my trailer has 6 panels, so it's perfect. All right, now I've got wires. I need my solar wires. Where is, oh, you know what? That Huai inverter I was messing with earlier has some solar wires I can steal off of it. Bear with me here as I jump off screen. Oh, that didn't take long. Now I need my super tiny flathead screwdriver. Oh, look. See, this is, apparently this is what happens when I clean my area, is I know where I put all my things. So we've got PV minus and PV positive. They didn't cut a slit in this thing, so I'm going to cut a slit so I can get my wires in. So this is going to be my positive wire, which is on the left. You guys are like, I don't know, I can't see that. I could do it the other way around. And then I can say it's on my left, and you're going to be like, well, it's on my right. But you know, that's gonna be the case regardless. Now I'm like, am I even in frame here? I don't know. Here we go. I think he said gauge this. Yeah, the battery wire is 2 gauge. You nailed it. You nailed it, Steven. You can kind of see that. It's kind of dark, huh? I'll work on that. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna be right back. I have this door open to the shop. I bet you if I closed it some, it would help the lighting. While I'm over here, I'm gonna grab myself a drink. Stay hydrated today. Not that root beer really counts as hydrated. Did that help? I think that did help. Oh yeah, that looks so much better. Everything looks so sharp. Nah, lighting's fine? Okay, well, I am curious, now that I did it, does it actually look? Or maybe it's just my screen's not washed out anymore, because now I can see my big screen, which is now looking at me. It's, yeah. I was gonna say I'll stop talking, but then that would be really boring. All right, I said this was gonna be my positive, which is gonna go on your left, my right. I'm gonna make sure I get all these wires in there so I'm not leaving stray 300 volts somewhere. Did I actually unscrew this yet? Much better. Oh, good. Much better. Okay. You know, sometimes it's the simple things. Sometimes it's the simple things. So this inverter has a 150 amp fuse inside of it. I'm going to do an external 200 amp fuse, which is probably a little big. Honestly, if it's 150 inside, then I should probably be doing a 150 outside as well. I don't think I've got any 150s, which is really no excuse. Just because I don't have any 150s doesn't mean that I get to use a different one. But 3,000 watts, it's like 120 amps, right? 3,000 watts at 24 volts over 24, 125 watts, or 125 amps, 125 amps, but that's 3,000 watts at 100% efficiency. So if we assume like 80% efficiency, that's like 150 amps. I'm surprised their fuse is 150 amps. That seems like it might nuisance blow, but I've not had one nuisance blow, so I don't know. I don't know. I'm putting a 200 amp fuse in. It calls for 2 gauge wire. The terminals that are included with the inverter come with, work with 2 gauge wire. And honestly, I'm pretty comfortable with 2 gauge. Oh, you know what I didn't do is make sure I had a breaker panel or something that I can do my AC output with. Where is, I've got one of those laying around here somewhere. it kind of needs some attention because its head is falling off like Wally is in disrepair or something. Oh, but this one's got a plug on it. I forgot I did that. This is a 30 amp RV plug. That means I would have to find an outlet that I could make into a 30 amp outlet. Dang it. Maybe first what I'll do is get this thing charging the battery, and then we'll see if I can power something with it. Okay, so I've got those two. I'll have to do my AC output in a minute. So now I need to throw it up on the wall. I have screws. I have whole boxes of screws. And I know I do because I cleaned my bench earlier. And I know exactly where I put them. Haha, that's what I want right there. They're a 1/2 inch, which is a little bit smaller than I'd like, but that'll work fine. So I'm gonna put one of these up. Let's go, say right there. And then I'll have to hold it up while I do the other one. I'll tell you what, these things are a lot easier to mount than something like a 8,000 watt split phase hybrid inverter. Those things are just so heavy. Is that even? I don't know that it is. I think I'm off a little bit. That looks better. Y'all can yell at me in a minute. There we go. I like to put a screw through the bottom somewhere as well. Keep it from flopping around. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I had to do that before I put... Ah, I did. Looks like I gotta take my positive cable off first. There it is. Now I can reach my screw. That'll get me to the back plate. And of course, my bit's not long enough, but guess what? I have a fix for that. All right, sound off. I'm using a drill, obviously not an impact. Do you use your drill or your impact when you're putting in screws? Last I checked, I was an odd one out by using a drill instead of using an impact. Oh, I guess I still needed that because I need to put my cable back in. All right. Looks like my mic holder's falling off. This is a good day that we can appreciate smell-o-vision isn't a thing. It's a little toasty out here today. But toasty's better than drippy. Okay, I need to connect to my battery. So this is gonna work for the positive side, the fuse. I have my switches off and my inverter is off. So I shouldn't get any capacitors trying to charge quickly. Looks like I ran these a little longer than I needed to. It's really supposed to be like straight up in the air. Don't know where the cover for this is. I'll probably set it over there somewhere. Okay, so there's that. And then this guy. Should I do... I should probably pre-charge this thing so that I don't snap those capacitors full in a quarter second. Another way to do this, I don't remember which BMS I have in here. It's probably on. Hopefully it is, otherwise I'll have to figure it out and get Bluetooth to it. You could connect this all and have the BMS off, because most modern BMSs will have some sort of a pre-charge circuit. So if you connect everything and then have the BMS turn on, then that handles the pre-charge and slowly charges the capacitors. So this isn't really a thing anymore for most systems. But if you're connecting to, say, lead acid batteries or something, and you want to slowly charge the capacitors inside of the inverter, before you connect up the wires, this is the way to go. You want to make sure that the inverter's off so that it's not trying to start while you're trying to charge the capacitors. Otherwise, it'll just keep draining the capacitors. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn my switch on. And you know what I should do is make sure that I've actually got voltage there. Where is my voltmeter? That would tell me whether my BMS is fired up or not. I feel like I'm winning today. I know where my tools are. Let's do DC. This should be a 24-volt battery. About to find out. 26.7. That's got some charge in it. Okay, so we've got voltage on the terminals. So what I'm going to do is, if I put this resistor here, instead of sparking and quickly charging capacitors, it'll slowly charge them up. And then, with any luck, when I connect my wire, oop, look at that, no spark, because my caps were already slowly charged up. That spark gets really, really fun when you get up to like 48 volts. And supposedly it can also hurt your inverter. I haven't actually had one die to that, but not to say it couldn't. I think this one's a 17. About to find out. Close enough. Okay, so that's on there nice and tight. So now what we need, this is so tiny. So this is a 3,000 watt high frequency inverter, charger, transfer switch. This is a 6,000 watt low frequency from like 2010. It's a better unit. I mean, there's no argument about that. But that's a huge size difference. And it doesn't have a solar charge controller. That's just an inverter charger. That's crazy. I might have to run outside here in a sec and go redo my array, which will take me about 2 minutes. Is anybody ready for a coffee break? Should I peel this off? I don't usually peel that, but that looks really nice. I usually just leave them on in perpetuity, and then they just end up getting worse and worse and worse, and then I never get to enjoy that it ever looked pretty. But that looks pretty. And you're like, I don't know, it just looks like a black circle to me, which is fair. Okay, so I have some wires on the ground here that run to my array outside. Where are the ends to my wires? I think this is an end. One day I'll have things labeled. So there's one. I should probably turn this off. So I don't have a disconnect switch here on the board, but I do have one up on the wall. I was talking earlier about how, especially with a higher voltage system like this, having a disconnect is important. So just wanted to point out that I do have one. It's just off screen. And you could even hear me turning it off. Where's the other end of this wire? Didn't I just have this over here? Oh, there it is. Found it. Okay, so I've got it plugged in. I've got it off. Oh look, someone sent me a chat. Oh yeah, modular versus all-in-one. I want to hear the answer to that question too. I'm gonna walk outside and I'll probably monologue about it. Because hopefully my mic should work just fine out here. I lean towards all-in-ones for the simplicity. And to be fair, I haven't really done any component systems lately. I mean, I've got like separate charge controllers and stuff that I'll play around with. But I don't really do separate inverters much. And honestly, the bigger inverters, like the big boys, who is it? Just, I mean, Schneider does big ones that are component. But usually you're just going to get Mickey Mouse stuff. Not that it's bad necessarily. Something that I like about the all-in-ones when you're in a scenario running something constantly is with the higher voltage bus systems that they've got now, you can end up with much higher efficiency going from, say, solar straight to the inverter, or the inverter out, instead of running solar to the battery and then battery out to the inverter. So you gain some efficiency there. I know David Paz did some video on that, and I think he gained like 3 to 5% efficiency using the same grow watt, but utilizing the power while it was coming off of the solar array, as opposed to using it later once it was stored in the battery. So just that round trip efficiency from the inverter to the battery and then back obviously isn't perfect, so something to consider there. That's not everything though. A lot of standalone inverters also don't have parallel capabilities. I mean, you know, neither does the one that I'm messing with right now, and it's an all-in-one. A lot of standalone charge controllers don't do high voltage input, but there's exceptions to that as well. Schneider makes a 600 volt MPPT charger. I've actually got a couple of those that I haven't played with, but I really should. So, can be. Actually, and I guess Signature Solar has that one that's a 48 volt, but it won't work at 24 volt. It's only 48. I really wish that one worked at 24 because that would be really cool. And even as far as I know, even the MPP Solar and Grow Watt dedicated solar charge controllers that do like 250 volt input, they only work on a 48 volt battery. They will not work on a 24 or 12 volt battery, which is kind of what makes this inverter specifically exciting, is that like other than a 240 volt output all-in-one, this is the only one I know of that'll do high voltage PV input. So pretty slick in that sense. I'm almost done here. I realize I'm talking very haphazardly because I'm climbing and kind of thinking at the same time and looking at my mess of wires. I think I get it right. Where's my wire coming from? There it is. Found it. And then that connects up there. Almost got it. I hope you guys are actually able to hear me while I was out here instead of it just being... It's kind of cloudy out here. We're not going to get much off this array. This won't be super exciting. Ooh, it's dark and hot in here. Okay, I'm back to see if anybody chatted me. Brent Brown said all-in-one. That's all the opinion we've got right now. What about you, Ray? What do you like? Or are you still deciding? Okay, so should really hook up Solar Assistant. Maybe I'll be able to do that too. This should be able to turn on. taking a lot longer than expected. There we go. A resource for learning about electricity. That's really hard, because a lot of people are like, just go to YouTube University. There's so much on YouTube that's wrong, though. There's so much on YouTube that's wrong. I wonder if there's any universities that have public courses or publicly available courses for electricity and how good those would be. Because I know, like, I think it was MIT, back when I was in college even, was publishing lectures and stuff, like whole course worth of lectures up to the internet to go listen to. Super boring way to learn. So Ray, okay, so you went with the modular, but then by the time you got done with it, it was actually less expensive to do the all-in-one. I could see that. Oh good, I'm glad you heard me fine outside. I was hoping the mic would work out there. All right, so what do we got here? Can y'all actually see? You can just see that it's blue. So we've got 120 volt output, 26.8 volt battery. That array, assuming I connected it correctly, is going to be 250 to 300 volts. And with any luck, I connected it in the right polarity. So let's check this out. This thing says it's at 36 degrees Celsius. That sounds about right. Where's my PV? PV, 254 volts. Has not started grabbing any power yet. That's a good root beer. However, at 26 volts, I wonder if this battery's already charged. All right, no, there we go. All right, so the input's down to, so it's pulling the voltage down, 224, 225. We got 1.7 amps coming off the array. 15 amps into the battery. So that's just over 400 watts. It would be nice if it was a clear day, but I think even on a clear day we wouldn't hit 2 kilowatts because my array is it's at like 60 degrees in order to fit on the trailer. You've probably seen it before. Well, I guess let me rummage real quick and see if I've got a 30 amp outlet in here. Do I have a 30 amp outlet? Here is a, no, that doesn't look, that's a dryer outlet. That's a little wrong. Bum bum ba-dum. Bum ba-dum ba-dum. I have got a bucket over here somewhere with all kinds of random things in it. Oh, is it hidden? Well, it's behind that very large pallet of panels there. So that's unfortunate. Is there another electrical panel I could run this to? Problem is that electrical panel that's on this board, for some reason, I've never put outlets on it. It's got a Schneider inverter. It's got in-phase microinverters. It's got a in-phase battery, an in-phase smart switch, but nothing to actually power. It just runs itself apparently. All right, well we're at 410 watts there. Yeah, Ray, so you're saying, yeah, you've got 12 and 24 volt system, but then in the end you would have just gone with a 48. It's hard though, it's hard to bite the bullet and spend the money you have to spend to go straight to 48. I had a couple in here today and they were here about 2 weeks ago and they came in, they're like, you know, we want to do solar, we want some backup, you know, we got a barn dominium, and you know, they were thinking hard about it. I think they had been talking to me even a week or two prior to that. I kind of told them about some of the stuff I've got here, and you know, and then they did. They bite the bullet and they went straight 48 volt. But like, it was like $4,000, and then they've still got to get some batteries to put on it. So like, it's a hefty lift at the front to be able to do when sometimes doing that 12 or 24 volt system and spending $800 or $1,000 on it, and being able to get familiar with it and know, you know, why you end up paying more for something, because sometimes you don't really know the why. You know, if I was looking at these two inverter chargers, or if someone was looking at these two inverter chargers, they may not realize, you know, why the new one is that much more important. But the fact that it could do high voltage DC input and you can over panel it, like, those are two pretty significant features to an all-in-one. But someone new wouldn't necessarily know. Cut an extension cord for the AC. You're right. I need to keep some power strips around here. I could use an extension cord. That's true. Do I have... Not that one. I wonder if I've got... Sometimes I keep the ends, but usually it's the other end of the extension cord. Oh, you know, I had... Where did that little guy go? We finally reached the point where I'm like, oh, no. Oh, I found one. I found two. Look at that. I need a small Phillips head screwdriver. Do y'all call them Phillips heads? Or slotted? Slotted? No, slotted would be flat, right? I've heard them called something else. Not that that's not uncommon for something to be called something different, but... There we go. Power strip. Turned it off. Just for giggles. All right, I am going to turn this thing back off again to avoid shorting something out. And then, oh, I need to go back to my flathead screwdriver. Appreciate you, Ray. Slotted is flat, cross tip. Yeah, see, there's another name for it, cross tip. That's the one I was thinking of with Phillips. It's cross tip. Something, and I'm probably overlooking something here, something that I really wish all these all-in-one manufacturers would do was include a relay inside the unit that would bond or connect neutral and ground, so that if it's an off-grid mode, no generator, no grid, then they are connected inside the inverter. And then if the grid ever comes on or a generator is on, then it allows the grid or generator to do the bonding. As it is, it seems like most of them just kind of overlook it. It's like, nah, we're not going to deal with that. And so they end up not being bonded. But then you either have to figure out a way to do a relay yourself, or make sure you don't have GFCIs, because if you leave them unbonded, you end up with voltage between, or potential between neutral and ground. Had somebody, and I thought I checked this when I built it out. I put a unit together for him, and he hauled it up to Colorado and went to install it, and he's like, I shocked myself, as he was messing with neutral and ground. And it's like, well, that shouldn't shock you. Those should be at the same potential. There should be no voltage between neutral and ground. And sure enough, as we tested it out, it was like, well, I thought I ohmed it out and everything, but apparently neutral and ground were not bonded in the inverter. So we just went ahead and bonded it at the electrical panel that we had set up for him. But now if he ever runs a generator, which inevitably he will, it might be bonded at the generator and at the electrical panel, which isn't the end of the world. But if your generator has, if you plug into a GFCI outlet on the generator, then it's going to trip because now there are two bonds and it doesn't appreciate that. Anyway, pet peeve of mine, because it wouldn't take that much. The inverter knows what mode it is in to be able to know whether it should be bonded currently internally or not. Or not. Okay, so now I get to pull out, what am I going to connect? Where is, oh gosh, it's a mess. It's a mess. I don't want to, oh, you know what I should do? I should do that. Check this out. I set up a system for someone recently to take to Africa. And I was like, well, I need to be able to test this system. And this system is 240 volts. And I don't have all that much 240 volt around to actually check and see if this thing's working right. Wouldn't be that big of a deal if it was just like a 3,000 watt inverter. I have a squirrel cage fan over here from my 5-ton air conditioner to blow air through the house, and I saved it. And I usually run it at 120 volts, so it's just kind of breezing on me right now. It's great. But if you connect it at 240, oh boy, it pulls like, it's a lot of wattage. I think it was pulling like 2,000 watts on 240 volt. I was like, that's, you know, that's good. That'll test an inverter a little bit. But it was a 6,000 watt inverter. I was like, well, it's not gonna be much of a load test, putting 2,000 watts on a 6,000 watt inverter. So I went ahead and bought a 5,000 VA transformer, step up and down transformer. I was like, that's cool. So I paid a little more for this one, other than like, instead of like a 1,000 or 2,000, but I can actually choose 110 or 220 input, and then I can output 110 or 220. So I can run that fan at 220 off of my 120 inverter. So let me stick this over here, see if we can blow something up. So I've got my input set to 110. We're going to turn that on. Now I've got to grab my extension cord. Where does that extension cord go? Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. There it is. Okay, I'm going to unplug my fan. And we're probably going to have stuff blowing all over the shop here in a sec. I should leave that accessible. And then where is the other end of my yellow extension cord? There it is. So this guy is going to be plugged into my 240 volt output and flip it on. Oh, did I never turned my inverter back on. That's funny. There we go. So it takes a while to boot. I wonder if I should put the front cover on. I probably should. That would help its airflow. Now that I've got everything in there. Of course I can't reach that side, so I guess I'll put one screw in. That way I can lose the other one, as well as the 4 extras. Okay, that's in. So, if I turn this breaker on, whoa, there we go. Let's see what it's pulling. Hopefully my microphone muff is working sufficiently. So that's 1,160 watts. Well, kVA anyway, 1.16 kVA. So the solar is bringing in 460 watts. This seems to be working fine. See how warm this thing gets. Oh, that's saying it's just 1,000 watts output for the inverter. I wonder if this thing's tingly now. Because I don't have this like grounded to anything. I don't feel anything. That's good. I wonder, where'd my multimeter go? I want to see if I've got potential. Ground to neutral. Who knows? Maybe they fixed it in this inverter. Maybe my whole rant would be like, oh my goodness, guys, they fixed it. No, they didn't fix it. So I have 120 volts between neutral and line, but then like line to ground is 57 volts and line or ground to neutral is 63 volts. So I really need to bond. I need to connect neutral and ground together, if you can even hear me. Oh, that feels good. I need to go get a water. Be right back. Oh, whoops. Apparently I unplugged my fridge earlier. What did I plug in? Probably plugged in my heat gun. That was a little while back. It's pretty simple. I mean, that's the beauty of an all-in-one, I guess, is that, I mean, I didn't build a battery, but I put together a system. Just used power strip, which, you know, assuming that power strip actually has a circuit breaker in it that's going to trip at 15 or 20 amps, 15 amps. It's relatively safe. I mean, the wire between, yeah, I mean, that's, you're never going to get the full 3,000 watts out of it because it's a power strip that can only do 15 amps, and that thing can push out like 25. That thing can provide 25. But yeah, got my solar plugged in. Got some nice battery cables down to my battery. That's a 3.3 kilowatt hour battery, so that'll last like what, 1 hour at full load. But it's got an 80 amp charger, so it'll charge it up in less than 2 hours. I'll plug it in again another day when we got full sun. See if I can max that at 2 kilowatts. Might have to wait for the sun to be lower in the sky or get some of those nice 490 watt panels out. I'm coming over here to read the comments. I could just point this at myself. You guys can like, woo, there. Where'd my mouse go? See my mess over here. Both my PV systems not grounded to anything. Any advice? So as far as I know, the solar panels, the frame should be grounded. If you look at like NEC code, if the solar panels are installed on a house, then the frames of the panels are all going to be grounded to house ground. So same ground you would use in an electrical panel. As an example, on my house, when I did a grid tie, I got it all permitted, the panels are grounded to the rails because it's all an integrated grounding system. And then the rails are grounded to the inverter ground, which of course that ground wire runs over to the electrical panel. So that's how that's grounded. And then I assume there's a ground rod somewhere. My house is from 1976, so who knows how they grounded it. Could be a piece of copper pipe somewhere. Now, if your panels are a ground mount, my understanding is that, and don't take this as gospel, right? But my understanding is that with the ground mount, it would have its own rod in the ground. So you would ground the frames of the panels to the ground rod. And then of course inverter output would be grounded to a ground rod in the house. A 3S 2P on the panels. Yeah, and like for grounding, it doesn't really matter because you're not grounding, not because, but you're not grounding like the negative of the solar array, right? That negative and the positive coming from the solar panels, that's floating. That should never be grounded out. That negative and positive goes straight into like a disconnect and into the inverter charger, the charge controller, whatever it's going to. You should not take that negative and short that to ground. You'll see that a lot in the charge controller or inverter charger manuals, is they say do not short negative to ground. Negative and ground are not the same thing like they are in a car. Really a car is not grounded if you think about it, because negative is the body of the car. Maybe that's why they do that, so that that's always the negative. But it's not grounded because it's up on rubber tires. Like there's no ground. So JR's asking, in the case of a lightning strike, would an inverter charger be more susceptible to damage than a separate charge controller inverter? We were kind of talking about this earlier, not here on the stream. I was talking to a couple about, it was about EMPs, but it's a similar thing. And I don't know, like ultimately I don't know. Because the thing of lightning strike, lightning's powerful. If it can get to the charge controller, then who's to say it can't go through the battery into the inverter? I don't know that you're really stopping that regardless. I know there's like surge suppressors and stuff to be able to try and clamp that. I've heard mixed success on that. I mean, it's probably better than nothing. So I don't really know. Okay, I want to try one more thing. I have, I'll spin you guys around. Somewhere around here, I have a solar assistant. And I want to see if I can connect that and see if it'll work on this inverter charger. Oh, that feels nice. But where's it at? Oh, there it is. There are no wires for it, but that's okay. What kind of wire does this thing need? It's probably, it's got USB. So, did this come with a USB wire? There's no USB wire here. I also need a USB-C power cord. Dum 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 da dum dum dum. You know, the other day I threw away a bunch of USB A to B cords. I was like, I don't need a whole box of these cords. I have a feeling I'm about to slap myself up the head, because that is exactly what I need right now. And this inverter apparently didn't come with one. Ray's asking, could I ground the panels inside of the combiner box, then to grounding rod? Yeah, I think that's how it's usually done. So like I've had some used midnight combiner boxes on a grid tie system, and they brought the ground wires from the panels into the combiner, and then from there it was grounded. I mean, it was probably grounded over to the inverters, but you could also go from there down to a ground rod. Keep in mind, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I am just regurgitating information as I see it. Where's my USB cord? Oh, is that a USB cord? I found one. What is it attached to? It's attached to an ancient Raspberry Pi, possibly a Pi 2. Oh, that's got a 32 gig SD card in it, which I realize isn't that big, but that could be handy for later. Okay, so here's my USB cord. Now I need a USB-C, and I know I had a power adapter around here somewhere. I'll steal this one. I think this one was charging my Android. Oh, sorry guys, looking at my bald spot. Okay, so we're going to power this guy with a 2 amp USB-C, and then we're going to run USB up to this inverter, and we should hopefully this thing has a license on it. If not, I'll have to go apply a license to it because I'm going to want it. But it should be connected to Wi-Fi already. All right, so that's powering up. It's really cool too. So when Solar Assistant first came out, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this is gonna be really cool for you. When it first came out, you could only view it over the web. So the Pi, the Raspberry Pi, would be a web server. You could view the Solar Assistant to see all your stats. With the Orange Pi, and I think the reason they went with the Orange Pi was because the Raspberry Pi was just always out of stock. So they did the Orange Pi, but it's actually so powerful that they're like, we can run a screen on this thing. So you can get a little LCD screen and just mount that next to your inverter charger and have all the stats just right there, or pull out your phone and see everything from the phone. So really cool. I don't have a screen right now though, because I had one here and then someone came and bought it off of me because he was like, that's really cool. And I was like, sure, you can have it. I got a couple more on the way. I wanted to get some that were like slightly bigger anyway, because the resolution just wasn't quite as big as I wanted to be able to see all the stats at once. Coming back over here, and bear with me here. Let's see if you can see my pretty mug. It's kind of an odd angle, but let's see. So Ray's saying, I bought a Wi-Fi device for the amp and vent 80 amp. It allows the user to monitor PV production when not at home. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So do you like it? I just ran out of those inverters. They're actually, the OEM is actually top one. So those are the ones that I've been buying, but amp and vent, I mean, it's the same thing. But those are nice. Those are nice charge controllers. Do you like the Wi-Fi monitoring specifically? I want to see if I can get to Solar Assistant. That's where I'm going, Solar Assistant. Let's bring this down here where I can see better. I suppose I could share my screen. Let's do this. Let's do display capture. Sure, let's do that. Now you guys can see everything I'm doing. I don't know if it's a bad thing or not. But. Okay, so we're gonna go into Solar Assistant. So this is my house. Now I don't have everything connected right now. It's just looking at the battery. It's a little cloudy today, so my battery hasn't stayed charged. Usually it's charged by now. Possibly some laundry being done, because you can see, like, if there's 4,000 watts being pulled from the battery plus whatever solar's available, that means there's probably about 10,000 watts of stuff running in the house. Anyway, that's not what we were looking at. We wanted to go look at, I believe it's this one. Where'd my water go? Oh good, it's online. Okay, so we can go to config, because I'm sure it's set up wrong. Go into settings. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so you just go disconnect. Let's get rid of this. So we're gonna change it to SRNE. I'm pretty sure that's what'll work. And just set it up as USB. Battery, I don't have battery communications, so we just leave it as use inverter values. Let's see if this works. Aha! Connected! All right, so go back to the dashboard. It'd be amazing if this thing just works. Of course, nothing's showing up. Come on. Oh, there's the solar. Ray's saying, so the Wi-Fi device doesn't graph the PV production for the amp and vent 80 amp charge controllers. That's weird, because doesn't it graph it on the device itself? Like, of all things, that's weird. Okay, so this is weird. It's showing how much solar's coming in, but it's not showing like the load. It's like it doesn't have everything. Let's try, oh, it's got another CRC error. That's weird. I wonder if there's another, let's try a different one. Oh, it says, oh, no, there we go. No response, no response. Well, maybe this one doesn't work yet. I think this is an SRNE, but it is a newer model, so I might have to hit up Solar Assistant and see if they're supporting this one yet. Yeah, it's not a Voltronic. I'm pretty sure it's an SRNE. I've used this with the older version of this inverter, and it worked. That being Solar Assistant. Yeah, I'm not a fan, Ray, I'm really not a fan of the Wi-Fi monitoring that most of these things have, even like the big old, like the Mega Revo inverter. It's okay, it does have most of the data, it just doesn't display it the way that I want it to. And it's like, I don't know, it's not that hard, you know? Sorry. That's so weird. I mean, I guess it could be my USB cable not being up to snuff. I could try the other USB port. Let me do that. Try the other port on the Orange Pi here. Probably have to go back into settings and change the USB 1. You know what I should do? I should just connect it and then reboot the Solar Assistant just to see. Failed to connect. I'm gonna move it back to the USB port and reboot it. Dum dum da 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 dum. Let's see what my house is doing. Oh yeah, now it's got some sun coming in. So this is, let me show you, this is the Wi-Fi stick that my Mega Revo inverter at my house has. Oops. And I'll show you how much more basic it looks. I mean, it's got data in it. It's just, so one thing I hate is that these are my two inverters. So it's set up as two whole plants, which is really obnoxious. So like this is my primary inverter. And so it has, you know, production and consumption and how much is going to the battery. But then to see what the other one's doing, I gotta click on it. So it's not even like combined. Okay, well this one's producing but pulling from the battery. It's like, wait a minute. That should just all be showing as one. JR's asking, how's your air-to-water heat pump doing? Yeah, it's a Chiltrix is what it is. It's funny that I actually remembered that. From Hotspot Energy, I think is who I bought it from. I mean, it works fine. The one thing I have a problem with it, and it's probably my fault, is that it'll lose pressure over time. So you're supposed to pressurize the water loop to like 25, 30 PSI. which I can do. I've got a pump set up to do it. But then over like 3 to 6 months, it drops to 0. And then, so maybe I've got a small leak, like a pinhole leak or something. If that didn't exist, it would work perfect. I really should do some better insulating on the pipes in the crawl space, but it does work well. It's a 3-ton unit and it cools, it's cooling about 2,500 square feet in our downstairs here in North Texas, so not bad. So I can go into here and I can see individual MPPT. Of course, with this one, it's just got the one string. Oh, 2.4 kilowatts, that's nice. That's a 2.7 kilowatt string, so that's getting almost full capacity. We've got some very bright sun out there. It's what do you call it, cloud edge. It's kind of stuff going on, I guess. Let's go to this one. This one's got 4 strings of panels connected to it. Should be 4. Ray says, DIY batteries are off the shelf. Man, I can't say one's better than the other. DIY is less expensive. But even me, I'm kind of trying to get away from like the wood case strapped together DIY battery. And I'm doing, I've sourced these rack mount cases that I can put batteries in. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more expensive than doing something with like wood or something on a shelf. But it's so much more modular. If I was doing a large, like 100 kilowatt hour battery, I would probably invest in like shelving or cabinets that I can just mount the batteries directly into. But if it's something mobile or something that I need to be able to move, rack mount's good. I like rack mount. Something just made a badoop, and I don't know what it was. Anyway, you can see here my 4 strings. So like PV1 is an array, like a 2.7 kilowatt array on the roof. Same thing with PV4. PV2 are my Cylindra panels. So that's like 15 panels at 157 watts. What's that, about 2,000 watts? And then this one is like 2.5 kilowatts on the ground in the backyard. Not doing very much. It gets shaded in the afternoon though, so that might be why. Let me see here. Let's get back to my face. Not that you guys necessarily want to see the top of my head. Here, we can just, this will be, there I am. You can just pretend you're looking right there. There at my eyeballs. I was gonna go look at YouTube. Cool. Well, I want to thank all 13 people that are being concurrent viewers here. Oh, wait. I wanted to go see. It's still not working. Connected, CRC error. No response. And then connected. So that's very weird. So it's got to load now. Anyway, that's what it's supposed to look like. So you get a battery percentage. You got, so there's my big squirrel cage fan that's running. Oh, wait, you guys can't see what I'm looking at. Hold on. Sorry. Hey, look, there it is. So here's my load, my big squirrel cage fan that's running. That's how much solar's coming in. And we can even look at inverter and see, we should be able to see like voltage of the solar. Yeah, so we're at 210 volts at 2.5 amps. That's pretty slick. I'm gonna have these up on my website soon, and you can see the wide array of inverters these things are compatible with. Check this out. So like you can go to their website and see too, but like the DI, SunSync, Solarc, that's all. So DI and then SunSync and Solarc are just relabeling the DI. GoodWe, GrowWatt, and this works with like just about all the GrowWatts. I've looked at the list, and you got the big low frequency transformer ones, you got the SPF models that I've messed with before, the LVMES, I think even the grid tie hybrid inverters work. Mega Revo, which is what I'm using at my house. Must is another brand out there. Man, I should connect this to my Must inverter. I've never heard of Summary. I'm just gonna check them out. SRNE, which is, usually your PowMsters are usually SRNE. Probably some of the Renogy stuff, some of the Midnight Solar DIY stuff, Voltronic Expert, MPP. So that's all of your Your MPP solar, EG4, that kind of stuff is going to be all Voltronic, and then rebadges of it. So that's pretty cool. How are the DIY batteries cheaper? So, how are DIY batteries cheaper? I guess it depends. If you're actually saying it doesn't seem like that, if you're looking at just like a 12-volt battery, it's very possible it's not cheaper. You can pick up a battery for 300 bucks. That's hard to beat. I'm going to, hold on one sec. We're gonna do something here. Ooh, that's toasty. Where is my, here it is. Y'all bear with me for a sec. Oh, I just popped that right off, huh? Dam, dam, da, dam. And you're like, I don't know, I can't see what you're doing. I'm getting you guys adjusted so that I can sit at my chair and talk to you for a few minutes before I need to leave. Oh, that is not going to work. Where's my iPhone? Where is my iPhone lightning cord? I don't know if this one's going to work, but we're about to find out. This one is up to there. It looks like I got an extra port right here. Apparently I wasn't ready for this. All right, let's try and see if I've got, whoa, that looks weird. One sec. Does it just not work on that? It's the part where you're like, I don't have to see your face. Oh wait, there it is. Hey look, my face. And a bunch of boxes in the background. Those are that's my pile of flex panels back there. Anyway, you're asking about how DIY batteries are cheaper. So they can be when you're doing scale. So if you're buying like 16 cells at like 200, 300 amp hours a piece, if you can get those cells for 150 bucks a piece, let's calculate it out. 150 at 16, and you add like a $150 BMS, you're talking about like $25.50 for a built, I mean, you know, after you put the labor in putting it together, $25.50 for a battery. If those were, say, 230 amp hour cells at 51.2 volts, you're talking about 11.7 kilowatt hours. So $25.50 over 11.7 is $218 per kilowatt hour. If we look at Signature Solar, why not? Where is their batteries? I can show what I'm doing here if you want. So if we go to their least expensive battery, it's 1,500 bucks for 5 kilowatt hours. Actually, that's their 24 volt. I suppose it doesn't really matter, but we can use that. So, oh, where'd my number go? Okay, so this is dollars per kilowatt hour for a DIY. So if we have a built rack mount at 1,500 for 5.12 kilowatt hours. So, I mean, yeah, there's a difference. It's not huge. If you're buying the cells straight from China, it would be less if you wanted to wait for the 2 months shipping. So it's just a huge sliding scale. And there's a consideration to how many times do you want to do it wrong before you get it right, and do you put that into the cost of the battery in the end? Or like a lot of people do, and they're just like, I'm just gonna buy the rack mount batteries because that's what everyone else does and it works. And there's something to just doing what works and what everyone else has figured out worked and moving on. I had someone arguing with me that, you know, lead acid is still the king of off-grid because they can buy 900 bucks worth of dead forklift batteries, revive them, and have a 60 kilowatt hour bank for 900 bucks. And I'm like, you do you. You know, if you can do that and make it work and you're really getting 60 kilowatt hours of it and you don't mind the maintenance of it, then go for it. But yeah, it's just a huge sliding scale. DIY can be less expensive if you put the time into it. I don't know. If anyone has any questions before I close this up, I want to see how this thing's doing. Oh, we're getting a little more solar in. How many amps is that? So we're already over, we're at about 60 amps, I guess, because 1400 watts would be what the old unit would max out at. Of course, it's only sending 20 amps to the battery because most of it's being used by the inverter to power my fan, which isn't even blowing on me, which is funny. Where is this camera? I'm just sorry. I was trying to move. I was trying to move my. Oh, I bet you it's that way. Oh, there we go. Okay, so then I can probably make this thing smaller so that we can see. Aha! There we go. Okay, we don't need grid power. We'll just leave it. We'll just leave it right there. Anyway, so it's running. It's running. Oh, it's kind of. Sorry. I was wondering if this thing was pointed over in the wrong direction a little bit. Boing, boing, boing. I wish I had just a little more sun. I'm gonna pull the. I'm gonna turn that squirrel cage fan off real quick. Till next time. Till next time. Turn this off. Let's see how much solar charging is actually going to the battery without any loads running. Ooh, you know what else I want to see is if I turn off the inverter, does the solar charging work? That was actually something that was nice with these inverter chargers that were effectively separate inside. It was really a solar charge controller plus an inverter, but it was all one unit. The newer ones, and it seems like all the ones that do the high voltage DC input, have a high voltage bus inside the inverter charger. So the solar goes onto the high voltage bus, the battery goes to the high voltage bus, and then from the high voltage bus, you have the inverter that provides power output. And it seems to be that with those types, you can't just switch off the inverter and leave the solar charge controller on. That was a cool feature because I could tell people if you're leaving the place, you want to keep the batteries topped off, but you don't want them to drain if the inverter is just sitting there eating 45 watts for 3 days and there's hardly any sun, you can just flip the switch off. But with this one, actually I know. Earlier I flipped it off and the whole thing just turned off, even though there is solar coming in. So it's an unfortunate reality. It's probably just the nature of the beast in that sense. You know, you get the advantage of the high voltage input, but it's a more integrated unit that has to run all the time. I wonder what the idle consumption is though. Let's see what the idle consumption is. I know, I said I was ending and then I was like, oh, but what about this? And oh, what about that? So I realize you guys can't see me right now, but I am going to shut off the solar. Inverter's still on. That was actually my sound effect. That wasn't the solar shutting off. I don't know if y'all realized that or not, but so I'm gonna go to DC amps and I'm gonna zero out my meter. I'm gonna stick this on the battery. This thing is pulling, and it says it's negative. I've got it connected backwards. This thing is pulling 1.74 amps. Woof. What is 1.74 amps at 26 volts? 1.74, oh, you guys can't even see the calculator. Times 26, 45 watts. I think that's on par with the old unit, so that's no different. It's a little high considering the massive inverter charger. Hey, where'd my face go? Did my phone fall asleep on me? Oh, it's too hot. That's hilarious. My phone that was streaming what was going on is too hot. It needs to cool down before it can do anything. So I think that's going to be the end of our stream. I appreciate everyone for coming out. Hopefully it wasn't incredibly boring. If you have any comments about things that I should do or should not do that would make this stream a little bit better, I would like to continue doing them in a similar format where if I have something cool and I just want to share it and I don't want to do a big edited video, I can just do a stream. So here we go. Leave your comments. I'm actually going to leave the stream up as long as it has decent audio and video, and so that someone can come back and watch it later. Y'all have a great Saturday, or whatever day it happens to be for you.